podcast called Jellison podcast.
He probably doesn't remember this at all.
Yeah, record together. It's easy.
This is kind of real. Like, holy shit.
And so it's really cool to get to be a part of that.
Hey, you know how it is, though. Hey, when
you now tune into the biggest ever.
We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
I don't remember that. That's crazy.
What's up, everyone? We're back with episode 123 of the Jellison podcast. They have a very special guest, Mr. Derick Grant. Derick, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for doing this. Actually, I was talking with Jake Mills. I don't know if you know him, but he originally was the one who told me about you, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to have him on. So shout out to Jake. I just talked to him a little bit ago, but I mean, for people who might not know you, talk a little bit about kind of what you're doing around the Indy area, especially.
Yeah, so a lot of people know me in the basketball world as a skill development guy, as a trainer, but now I've kind of put training on the side, and now I've transitioned to basically help athletes, help people with their mindset, right? Getting them to the place where they're performing at their peak potential because they've shifted the way they view themselves and shifted the way they think.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I mean, for me, someone, and a lot of my listeners, I mean, honestly, people who aren't necessarily athletes or do anything physically like training or things like that, I mean, that's right in our wheelhouse. That's something that we all need to invest in my opinion.
Absolutely. That's why I say it doesn't matter if you're a teacher, a stay-at-home mom, or you're playing the NBA. We all have a mind, and everyone needs to cultivate theirs to the maximum potential. So I've just kind of taken it upon myself and said, you know what? I don't know how much longer I can have it here on earth, but however long it is, I'm just going to help everybody reach their full potential.
That's special, man. I mean, I absolutely love what you're doing. I mean, where did you learn that, or did you have like a moment where you're like, oh, I want to do this. I want to help people kind of cultivate their mind, like you mentioned.
Yeah, no, I went through a rough time back in 2018, 2019, got involved with a business partner. One thing led to another. He stole everything from us. We ended up moving from Florida back up to Indiana. I get a knock on the door. It's the FBI. They're coming to me because they want to get to him. And I'm like, yo, I'm just a basketball guy. What's going on here? And before I knew it, it was like, how did my life get to this? Like, how did I get to this point? And I realized it's really not good and it's really not bad. It's really based on how I perceive it. And that's a choice that I have, right? Is the glass half empty or is it half full? So I made a conscious decision to say, you know what? I'm going to figure out a way to make this into a positive, because I know how it feels when you've lost everything, you're down to nothing. I'm going to help other people who may be going through that right now. And I just started out speaking and traveling to schools and doing that. And then I sort of went on this journey through COVID when the quarantine happened, having time to myself. I just started reading and really getting to know how I operate. And then I realized, like, oh man, like, dude, if you knew how much potential you had, if you cultivated this thing called the mind, you could do anything. And this is kind of where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of my favorite things to hear about. Obviously, I'm sorry about everything that happened, but I mean, I do like hearing about kind of the, like, digging yourself out of that hole, even if it's not something you dug yourself. But I love hearing those stories about how like one thing will switch a flip in someone's mind, and then they're just a complete savage, and they're going to, like, for me, I mean, we're on complete polar opposites, but like my freshman year of college, I ended up getting a 0.19 GPA. So right. I mean, that was a thing for me, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like the FBI knocking on your door. It could be
sure.
Like
it's all relative, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Something that just flips, and then I mean, you find whatever gear you need to go into, and it's just off to the races.
I always tell people what we haven't been taught in life. So we get taught in school growing up that, like, there's such thing as failure. There's no such thing as failure. I deal with athletes all the time and high performing people. And I say, when have you ever failed? And they'll go back and name all these chances, all these opportunities, or these times that they failed. I'm like, what did you learn? And they're like, oh, I learned this and I was able to do this after. I said, well, then you didn't fail. Mm-hmm. See, school messes us up sometimes, because school, the teacher gives us the answers, and then she gives us a test. And if you don't do well on the test, yeah, you absolutely should fail because you got all the answers in the lesson. But life's the other way around though, right? Life gives you the test, it gives you the hardship, it gives you the FBI, it gives you the 0.19, and then you get the answer as to why the test happened. Right. So when you understand, I tell people all the time, like, you ain't never failed a day in your life. Never have you failed if you played it right. If you do what you're supposed to, the FBI coming and losing everything, that 0.19 should be the best thing that happened in your life because you flip it and use it for a positive.
Dude, you make me want to run through a damn wall. Already done for 5 minutes. I'm already juiced up.
Yeah, man. Hey, dude, I tell you what, man, I tell people I don't just speak it, like I live it, right? And anything I say, it's because I've experienced it. So
100%. I mean, like I said, we've been on here for what, 5 minutes. I can already tell. I mean, for you, when you were in the depths of those hard times, like you mentioned, I mean, what was your mind going through in terms of like, oh, why is this happening to me and all that stuff? And I mean, what do you have like an exact moment of when things kind of switched for you?
Yeah, I when I was going through it, I was like, I was playing the card of woe is me. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe somebody be like, hey, how you doing, Derek? Oh my gosh, listen to what happened. This is like, I was in this victim consciousness that I was a victim. And I realized like, yo, like you want to do this, this, and this, but you can never do it being a victim because a victim operates in a state of fear. You're never going to be able to do it. So one morning I woke up, I was just mad, man. I was pissed off at the world. I'm like, man, this is some bullshit. I can't believe this is happening. And then I heard this voice tell me, then why are you looking at it this way? And I was like, what the, who said that? Wait, what? But I realized like, oh my gosh, this isn't good and it's not bad. It's based on how I view it. I have that control. I have that power. I didn't know I had that power. I thought I just had to be a victim. So after that, I was like, you know what? I'm always going to look at life as the glass being half full because I have that power and I have that choice. No matter if I live here on Earth, I lived in Jupiter. If I was a whale, I will always be able to exercise free will. So I'm going to exercise it. And it's changed my life and other people I work with. They're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I'm like, yeah, they don't teach us this in school. You will always have a choice as to how you perceive a situation.
And something, I mean, I talk about him all the time, but Brian Clark, do you know that name? He's around.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, some of the stuff that you're talking about now, I mean, he told me that in high school, like, well, as a group in our athletic weights class. And I remember one thing he showed us was Jocko Willink, and it was basically like something bad happens, good. Like you want that to happen, and then you can you can use it to your advantage. So that's, I mean, but you did talk about that kind of victim mindset. I talked about that on a podcast a few weeks ago, and I mean, I feel like too many people are just stuck in that mindset of being a victim and not being like good. That happens to me. Now what?
Yeah, we actually get conditioned and get taught that way. I got a 9-year-old and 6-year-old, 2 kids, and I see it already. Like we get taught that life happens and then you have to deal with it. You need to figure it out. When you understand that you are today, what you thought you were, every experience, every thought, every situation you ever endured in the past, when you add all of those up, that's what you are today. The problem is that you unconsciously had thoughts. You unconsciously did things. So I was like, yo, and the ancients knew this. I started reading books and everything. I'm like, yo, they knew this thousands of years ago. If you can control your thoughts, you will control your life. So I just started like being hypersensitive of what I'm thinking. How am I perceiving this? Someone starts yelling at me, I don't lash back at them. I sit here internalize like, okay, Derek, how do you really feel about this situation instead of just reacting? Man, when you do that, you'll see the power that you have as a human being to create your life consciously instead of unconsciously and being a victim.
But I mean, that is a real issue for people is like understanding that and actually having the wherewithal to do it. Because I mean, like for you, I mean, you didn't really have this mindset until you went through adversity and then you kind of adopted it. But I think a lot of people, especially younger people, I think older people do a better job of this, but I mean, younger people, they don't necessarily have those things that they're dealing with. And I mean, they just have that victim mindset because, like you mentioned, that's what they're taught.
Think of your life as almost like a computer, right? It's a computer, and then you have software that runs the computer. Your software was programmed by your parents, your siblings, your society, your culture. And with the program, with that software, it comes with rules. It comes with perspectives already. So if you're a male, you're supposed to act this way. You're supposed to think this way. If you're a Christian, you're supposed to think this way. And what you don't realize, that software was written by somebody else. You were responsible to write your own software for your own computer. So what I did was, when I realized, like, yo, my software ain't working, I gotta update this. So I tore all of my software out because I used to be worried about what people thought about me. So I sat and asked myself, well, why are you so worried about it? Well, because I want them to like me. Well, why do you want them to like you? Because then they'll think I'm cool. Why are you worried about being cool? Well, I don't know. I felt like I wasn't cool growing up. In whose eyes? Well, I guess probably my dad's. Oh, so you really want your dad's approval, not them on social media. You wanted your father's. Okay, so now I can start. Now I'm aware of it. It can't exist. It cannot exist when I'm aware of it. Now I can start to reprogram the software. And now what I've done, I reprogrammed it to how I need it to run in my life in 2021 instead of based on what my parents have done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So this is where I try to tell young people, like, and it's hard for a lot of young people because I'd already moved out the house. I'm growing, I have my own family. But like, your parents were just guides to help you to get to a certain point, and then you're supposed to write your own software for your own life.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we keep going back to this. I mean, what schools teach us and don't teach us. I mean, obviously, everyone can see they don't really teach us critical thinking skills. I mean, you have a few classes, especially, I mean, in college, they do a little bit of a better job of it, but largely it's like, oh, remember these facts, do this, whatever. I mean, and they don't teach us those critical thinking skills. So then we're not super equipped unless we go out and get it on our own.
Well, you know, I'm a huge advocate for education, for knowledge. I think the model for our education system, though, is it's outdated, right? You got to think back in the day in the 40s, like they had the industrial age, you needed to produce people who would work in the factories. We need you to be here at this time and do what we tell you to do and not ask questions and not think, just do that. Now, consciousness is raised on the planet. Like, we got kids who are so brilliant, but we're still running this old program. Like, you go to college and you go 4 years and you get your education, then you get a job for 40 years and put money away. And then if you're lucky, you can live. Like, wait, what? No, that isn't. What about this kid who's actually the next Elon Musk, but he's too afraid to bust out of this software, this program that's running, and go after what he knows he can do? This is what every human being, to me, in my opinion, my philosophy, we're all destined for greatness, all of us. It's just who's going to break out of the shell that they've been put in and go after it. So, yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that society and I mean, people that we're around, they do kind of, I mean, it's scary to take those chances, right? Like for me,
Sure.
like when I started this podcast, I know it's at a different level, but it was scary. I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Sure.
And then I just had to learn on the job, learn on the fly.
You love doing it though, right? You went after your passion though. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is what I try to tell people. Like, I just had a client yesterday, we were talking about, she's like, I don't like my job. I said, okay, walk away from it. Yeah, but then I can't support my family. I said, okay, then what? Well, then I'll have to move in with my father. I said, okay, then what? She's like, well, then I don't like that town that he lives in. I said, okay, now what? She's like, well, then I'll be bored. I said, will you be bored or will you have more time to figure out what you want to do in life? And she was like, I never thought about it like that. I said, it's just a shift in the way you view things. Once you have that power, and you realize, you always have the power, but once you realize, it's like, man, I'm crazy for not going after what I want to do. It's going to be scary, only because you have never done it. Once you do it, you'll be like, I've done it. Like your podcast, you're on episode 123 now, right? Go after your passions, man. Go after your passions. It will lead to your purpose.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself, honestly. I wish more people would, but they're stuck in that cycle.
Yeah, man. That's why I gotta try and help as many as I can, man. I feel like Neo, man. I gotta break them out of the matrix.
Well, hey, I appreciate what you're doing and I love it. But
Thanks, man.
I want to talk a little bit about your training business. And I know you've kind of put it on the back burner a little bit, but I mean, how did that all come together and how did it grow since you started it?
Yeah, I think growing up, I moved around a lot growing up. My dad was always taking jobs, different states, so I moved around a lot. And through that, I became like, it was almost like a survival mechanism for me to be able to make friends at a new school. I would study people and I would study the intricate details of like, okay, oh, she laughed at that, or he doesn't like that. And I would always watch from afar. And then I went on to play 8 years for Harlem Globetrotters. When I got done, I was like, man, and my wife, she's from Indiana. She's like, you should teach kids how to play basketball. I'm like, teach kids how to play. Then they can go on YouTube. Well, nobody's going to hire me. Are you kidding me? Well, I did it. I started with 2 kids at a park, and all of a sudden it ballooned to 350 kids a year later. But I always paid attention to the small things. So I could look at a player and be like, well, if he would do this, this, and this, he could probably be a D1 player playing the NBA. And I was able to see that this was a gift. So I took what was a survival mechanism growing up and applied it into basketball. So I could take Billy and say like, hey, Billy, if we can get your left hand or you can be able to jump off your left foot a little better, dude, you could probably average another 6 points, 6 to 8 points to your season average. That's a big difference. So it really just helped me with training to really pay attention to the small things that players do and don't do. And that helped me to really develop players develop players at a rapid rate.
I mean, going back to talking to Jake Mills, I mean, you've worked with some of my former guests like Dakota Mathias, Kyle Guy, Taylor Persons. I mean, there's a whole bunch of guys that you've worked with, but I mean, talk about the talent that's just in Indiana that I can see.
Man, when I moved out here, I was like, because I'm from New Jersey, really, and you know, we always say East Coast, New York City. You know, they got Hoopers, Philly. When I got out here, I'm like, I don't know of a place this small, right? We go to California, of course, you're going to have a lot of Hoopers there, but this small with this concentrate of high quality basketball players. So when I moved down to Florida in 2018, I got to see basketball. I coached high school down there. I was like, yo, this is nothing like Indiana. When I came back to Indiana, it really gave me an appreciation of how many high level players there are, whether it's Division I, Division II, NBA, in really a compact area. I always say, man, Indiana, you got to put them in the top 5 probably in the country, Indianapolis especially, of hoopers that can just flat out play, man.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and like you said, like California and places like Florida, they're so much bigger, so they're obviously going to have a lot more guys.
Right.
I mean, dude, you can go up and down the list every year. You go on like 247 or whatever. I mean, look at the recruiting rankings. There's studs after just pros up and down the list every year.
Dude, I live in Fishers, and I'm like, I look at the amount of McDonald's All-Americans that have come out of like this 20-mile radius, and I'm just like, this is crazy. Like on both sides, on female and male. So that's how you know Indiana basketball. I remember when I moved here, people were like, oh, basketball is like a religion here. I'm like, yeah, okay. No, they were serious. Like, this is a way of life here for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, your area, I remember like in a 2-year span, it was like Gary Harris, Trey Lyles, Zach Irvin, Yogi Ferrell, Ronnie Johnson,
Crazy.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, man. It's cool now that like, especially we had some open runs this summer. I call them Dizzy runs. And to be able to see all of these guys up close and see them all in one place. And it's just like, man, so like next summer, I'm going to start a pro-am for these guys. And because everybody goes to the Drew League and, you know, we go out to Dykeman out in New York City. And I'm like, yo, if they knew who was in Indiana, it's time to let the world know, man.
That's sick. I love that. I'm surprised no one's done that before.
They tried. I think they tried about 10 years ago. This guy named Carlos Knox. He tried, but it was right after the NBA lockout, so things just kind of fizzled down. But I'm like, man, me and Kyle Guy have been talking about it. And this is why this summer we were having dizzy runs. It was to get this going. But yeah, for sure, we're gonna make this thing happen.
That's awesome. I mean, what is it like for you? I know you kind of talked about it briefly, but what is it like for you to come into Indiana where, I mean, in 49 other states, it's just basketball, but this is Indiana, right? I mean, what is that like to, I mean, play around the world and do all these things and then come to Indiana and see the culture that it is?
I always tell my wife it was fate, man. It was destiny. Like for me to come out here, like being like basketball is everything. Like to me, it's the equalizer, right? No matter what's going on in the world, no matter what side of the coin you're on, like here in Indiana, all differences are aside when it comes to basketball. Like whether it's the Pacers, whether it's Butler, IUP, whatever it is, everyone's coming together because they love basketball so much. And my son now, he's 9 years old and he's starting to play, and he's been playing on 10 feet since he was in first grade. And I'm like, when I grew up, we didn't start playing on 10 feet till like sixth grade. But I told my wife, I'm like, I see why these kids are so much better than the rest of the country, because they were just little guys and girls getting started. So yeah, Indiana's just, man, it's definitely different. It's one of those things where unless you live here and experience it, you really don't know. You have no idea.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and then you look at all the awesome places that guys can go to train now. I mean, you got you got, I forget his name, Taylor Ware over in Carmel. Yep. You got Joey Burton.
Yeah.
You got the Barn up in Marion. I mean,
right.
A ton of places now. I mean, what is that like to see? I mean, this kind of budding business.
I think it's beautiful, right? What it's doing is it's helping these young ball players. There's like you said, there's some great trainers out there: Jordan Dells, Joey Burton, Taylor Ware. I think more than anything, it's only helping the state in terms of the crop of talent. Like if you're not, I was talking to a guy yesterday. It's like if you're not training in second grade with somebody, you're behind. You're going to be behind. Whereas, I went down to Florida for a year. Nobody was training in sixth grade. So you see why Indiana is what it is. And, I'm all for it. And like I said, education and knowledge, it doesn't have to be with academics. It can be in basketball. It can be with life. And if there's teachers out there, if there's coaches out there who are willing to impart that knowledge and wisdom they have onto the younger generation, I'm all for it.
Well, I mean, if I had a kid and he wanted to hoop, I would send him to you just because.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean,
thanks, man.
You do give that knowledge that allows people to. I mean, obviously they're going to use it on the court just with your credentials and the things, your knowledge. But I mean, they can take that off the court as well and apply it into anywhere they want to go.
That's the beauty of sports, right? Sports is a microcosm of the macro of life. So I can take learning how to persevere through a hardship in the season, and then I can apply that to business when I'm an entrepreneur 20 years later. So I've always been the type, and I got this from my mom, I want to help you in more than just basketball, because eventually that ball is going to stop bouncing. What are you going to do in the rest of life? So if I can impart knowledge and wisdom that you can actually apply in basketball and in life, shoot, we might as well kill two birds with one stone there.
100%. I mean, for guys that are playing, I know one of my good friends, Rayfeld Davis, I mean, his career got cut short kind of abruptly with a back injury right out of college. I mean, so luckily for him, he got a job with Eli Lilly, and I mean, obviously he's doing great things now. But I mean, for guys that haven't really thought about that next step after basketball, I mean, how do you think they should go about that, of being prepared for when the ball stops bouncing, like you mentioned?
Yeah, I would sit down and write out all the things you would hate to do. Right? What is it you don't want to do? What are your non-negotiables? No, there's no way I'm doing this. And then look at those things. Say you don't like sitting in office all day. Okay. Well, now I know that I don't like sitting in an office. That means I would actually enjoy being out and about. So by going through and seeing the things that I don't want, and then looking at that opposite energy is going to tell me what I want to do. And then lastly, I tell guys dude, figure out what your passion is. If it's fashion, if it's crocheting. It doesn't matter if it's cutting lawns, whatever it is, follow your passion, because your passion will always lead to your purpose. When you go after your purpose, you're never going to find it. Now you're going to be working at a job that you hate, and then you leave and go do something else. I'm a living testament of it, man. I just started doing what I love to do, helping people and inspiring them. And it has literally made a way that I couldn't even, I mean, if someone would have given me a billion guesses, I never would have guessed it would have gotten to this point.
I mean, what do you mean by that though?
Well, I look at it and say, like, my intention, my focus was just to help people, whether that's speaking, whether that means training, whether that means coaching, executive coaching, or whatever it is. I just want to help people. And I let go of the outcome of how it was going to happen. You know what I mean? I just went after what I love to do. And then it ended up turning into like, well, now I'm a mindset performance coach who works with companies, who works with athletes, who I'm like, somebody would have told me this 3 years ago. I've been like, wait, no, I'm not doing that. Why would I ever? But going after what I love, this is what ended up happening. So, yeah.
Do you ever sit back and think about like, wow, I mean, my life now is completely different than what I would like. What goes through your mind when you have a chance to sit back and just think about your journey?
Yeah, I often, to be honest with you, I struggle with that. I don't really. My wife is like, you never take time to appreciate what you've done. And you know, I come from the mold of like, okay, for me to get up there, what do we have to do? Okay, we got to do this and this and this right now. So then when I get there, it's like, yeah, I got here. Like, I was that back then. That's why I'm here right now. And I never take time to enjoy it. But my wife does a good job of reminding me, like, look where you were a year ago. Look where you were 6 months ago. So that's definitely something I got to work on, though.
And I mean, the last thing I wanted to kind of talk about was obviously, like you mentioned, you played with the Harlem Globetrotters for 8 years. I mean, that's a super unique kind of basketball journey. Not a lot of guys might not think about. I mean, what was it like to be a part of that world famous organization?
Yeah, man, it was surreal for the simple fact that, you know, my parents didn't introduce me. Well, I guess they kind of did, but like my dad didn't play basketball. My mom didn't play basketball. My brother didn't play basketball. But my mom always wanted to like introduce us to new experiences in life. So like it could be going to an opera. It could be going to a golf course. This one time she was like, I'm going to take you guys to see the Harlem Globetrotters. I'm like, who's a Globe? Wait, what? What is that? When I was 7 years old, she took us. Dude, I was like, yo, if this is basketball, I'm in. I don't care. Like, this is awesome. That was my introduction to the game. And so for me to be able to play, and I never planned on playing for the Globetrotters. I just said, yo, I want to play professional basketball. I want to get paid to play basketball. I don't care where it was at, how much. I just want to get paid. And when I got to do it, and then I actually like fell in love with it. And like, dude, I got to go to 70 different countries. I got to be on the Today Show. I'm sitting next to Kim Kardashian in Today Show getting my makeup done. Like, it was like just experiences that like a young boy from New Jersey I never would have guessed. But all in all, what it taught me, it gave me perspective, right? So I got to actually see how people live outside of this country, outside of my state. And it really helped me gain an appreciation for humanity, right? No matter, and then people always, you know, I had fans coming to me all the time, even today. Oh, you played for the Globetrotters, dude. I saw them in 1955, and this. People always remember. They always remember how the Globetrotters made them feel, and you know, to me, it's cool because like I get to share in that because it's like I actually saw a little girl. My son had practice, and this girl had a Harlem Globetrotters sweatshirt on, and she was like, oh, she's 15, 16 years old. I was like, oh, that's cool. She's like, oh, I went to go see him. She went to go see them when I was on the team. So she thought it was like the coolest thing because here's this guy who So, and I know that she'll never forget that. So the fact that I got to do that for so many, I mean, probably millions of people, it's an honor.
It's super special. Just, I mean, I can only imagine the things that you guys on the court feel, but I want to talk about that in a second. I need to go back to getting your makeup done next to Kim Kardashian on the Today Show. I mean, how crazy was that?
Dude, I always measure the time by who she was dating, right? I think at the time she was She was dating what's the guy's name? Played for the Cowboys, Miles something.
Miles
I forgot.
Austin.
Miles Austin. She was dating him at the time, but I remember thinking like, man, you are short. She was tiny. Like I didn't think she was that short, but it was a cool experience, and yeah, I definitely threw that into my bag of memories for sure.
100%. I mean, do you think that the Globetrotters kind of get the respect that that they deserve, just amongst the hoopers? Because like for me, when I was growing up, I didn't really relate the Globetrotters to like guys in the NBA. Now, as I've gotten older, I realized, oh, those guys can hoop. You look at like Jamario Moon, who played for the Globetrotters and went and played for the Cavs. I mean, I'm sure there's other examples of that too, but
Yeah, that's always been kind of the stigma with the Globetrotters. Like, oh, well, that's not real basketball. You know, yeah, there's a component that's entertainment, but you got real hoopers who can really play. I mean, we used to have practice and scrimmages all the time. And I mean, there are some guys that, I mean, there are big time schools, Tennessee, Memphis, Oklahoma, like big time Division I guys that for whatever reason didn't play in the NBA, but that didn't diminish how good they were. We used to always, when guys start talking trash, we used to always say like, hey, don't get twisted. I'm a hooper. Like, don't let these tricks and everything fool you. We can still play. And that was always the focus when we got guys. Like, can he play? Because you got to be a ball player, and then we'll teach you how to entertain and do all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm. And what is that like to kind of go through the grind of both playing and putting on a show for the fans?
Man, it gave me an appreciation for entertainers, man. It is a grind. I mean, I played a year, about 250 games a year.
Damn.
Yeah, and 250 of those 250, probably 175 of them were played between December and May. So I'm literally playing a different city every night, playing one. It was exhausting, but at the same time, it was just like, man, like, what an opportunity, right? I get to see the world, right? I mean, as much as I travel to the US, I mean, I've been to China 8 times. I spent 2 months straight traveling from different city to city in Europe. Like, I got to do unbelievable things. But there is a part of it where it's like, yo, your body starts to break down because you're eating out every night and you're not getting to sleep and you're on a bus and you're traveling on a plane. So I always tell it's definitely a young man's occupation for sure.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
Yeah.
And then last thing, something I was just thinking about, I was curious. I mean, did you guys ever have, maybe you or any of your teammates, have something going on like off the court, whether it be relationships, family, yada, 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 and you guys just have to put aside to put smiles on other people's faces? That's something that people might not think about, but I was like, that had to happen all the time.
Man, that's a great question. It was, dude, your life doesn't just stop, right? You got real life issues that everyone else has, but then you got to like put this mask on and be like, hey, how's everybody doing? I can remember times, man, where especially like, so me and my wife, we had our first child when it was my 6th year. You know, I'd leave home Christmas morning. That's when I would leave for 5 months. You know, when you leave and, you know, my son's 5 months old, when I come back home, he's like a completely different child.
Mm-hmm.
That was a strain. Like, I'm missing my family. I'm missing my child. I don't get to see him. And then I have to go out here and entertain someone else's children and create lifelong memories. But it's one of those things, man. It's like, I was always raised, you got to do what you got to do. And, but guys do stray. It's real life. And I see now entertainers now, I'm like, man, like LeBron, like people have no idea. These guys have so many things that they never bring to the surface for the rest of the world to see. And they're still able to perform at the level that they do. Is amazing.
It's crazy, but I'm gonna have to wrap this thing out so I can go to class. I mean,
Awesome.
thank you so much for coming on. It was
Man,
it was an honor. It was super fun, and I mean, I loved it.
Dude, pleasure's mine, Dub. Keep going, dude. Keep going. Whatever. I don't know what level you're trying to get to, but know that you can do it, man. Keep going, and thank you for having me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.